In NBN News, a man stabbed in the back and 5 others charged over a violent brawl at Burleigh. The Education Department cracking down on Gold Coast school fights. And a woman ploughs her car with a baby on board through a Southport shop. The details next. Thanks, Eddie. Coming up, Adil Khan sentenced to 30 years jail for setting fire to his shop and killing 3 people. A fatal shooting and dirty water add to the dramas in Rio. A house explodes into bits and flooding causes a spectacular waterfall in China. That's next.
Tonight, keep up to date with NBN News and a current affair. Then a true grudge match, Eels, Sea Eagles, live and free. Followed by Johnny Depp in the Oscar masterpiece, Platoon. Tonight on 9.
Tonight, the family of a murdered Central Coast teenager shares its grief as his killer is sentenced to nearly 2 decades in prison.
No remorse. A Sydney shopkeeper pays a high price after setting fire to his store, claiming 3 lives.
Police looking at a 3rd game as part of their investigation into NRL match fixing.
And Rio in chaos on the eve of the opening ceremony.
This is NBN News with Natasha Beyersdorf and Paul Lobb.
Good evening. The man who brutally killed Central Coast teenager Kieran Priestland will spend the next 15 years behind bars. 21-year-old Andrew Perkins was sentenced to a maximum of 20 years and 6 months in Newcastle Supreme Court today. The victim's family labelling the sentence inadequate. Still to come, a woman attacked with a hammer while waiting for a bus.
The NRL has been rocked by a new scandal, with police and the league's integrity unit investigating suspicious gambling activity. A betting trail has emerged relating to a clash between the Parramatta Eels and the Manly Sea Eagles earlier this year. Ahead in the news, Barack Obama takes aim at Donald Trump.
Of course the elections will not be rigged. What does that mean?
Two Australians have been injured in a frenzied and random stabbing attack that left an American woman dead in London. A 19-year-old Norwegian man of Somali origin is being questioned by police, but terror is not thought to be a motive. The Australian man and woman suffered non-life-threatening injuries and have been released from hospital.
Donald Trump's disastrous week has been reflected in the polls, with the billionaire slumping to a double-digit deficit behind Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama has taken a swipe at the Republican candidate, mocking his claims the November election will be rigged.
To finance, and it was a mixed day on the Australian share market. Most of the big banks closed higher, while the NAB dropped 3 cents. Retail giants Woolworths and Wesfarmers both lost ground. The All Ordinaries Index increased by 22 points. To commodities, and gold is trading up, while benchmark crude oil is down 46 US cents. And the Aussie dollar is buying 76.5 US cents and 58 British pence.
Well, now for a quick look at the weather with Gavin Morris, who's at Newcastle Museum tonight for its 5th birthday. Gav, what's in store for the weekend?
I am. Thank you so much, Tash. The 5th birthday of the Newcastle Museum. It is a beautiful evening. It's a little cool. It's a little crisp. But this is a free event. The Newcastle Museum is a fabulous place. If you're anywhere nearby, anywhere in the vicinity, call on in. There's a lot of bands. We're out the back in the courtyard. We've got about another 4 bands. It'll wrap up at around about 10 p.m. tonight. So there's hours to go. There's food stalls. We're next to the bar, of course. There's entertainment going on inside as well. It is is a fabulous Friday night here at the moment. The showers have held off, and that's the theme up and down the entire East Coast at the moment. The shower activity has been breaking up throughout the day, and that should continue across the weekend. Those southeasterly winds are going to blow right across the entire broadcast area in over the northwest, which will be soaking up some sunshine over the weekend. But that swell is still going to be really quite big, so come on down, Newcastle Museum, come out the back into the courtyard. We'll be doing your local weather soon.
Thanks, Gav. Coming up, ripped apart, what caused a huge explosion that left a family home in pieces.
And when a flood emergency becomes a tourist attraction.
Immunisation experts in Australia are considering whether flu jabs should be offered to children as part of a national program. But a study has found the vaccine prevents hospital admissions in only 55% of cases. Studies also suggest the vaccine is more effective around the peak of the flu season, which is usually August.
A small win for Salim Mahaja, the former Deputy Mayor of Auburn, today found not guilty of texting behind the wheel. Mr Mahaja told the court he didn't have his phone with him when he was pulled over because he'd left it at the airport, but he might have been playing with his watch. He later took to social media to boast about the verdict.
Overseas now, and 7 people have been rushed to hospital after their home exploded in the US. Emergency teams raced to rescue residents from the rubble in Connecticut. These drone pictures showing the incredible devastation left behind. It's unclear what caused the blast. Authorities are investigating a possible gas leak.
Heavy rain has created a massive waterfall on China's Yellow River, tourists rushing to photograph the rare event. The 30-metre drop is the steepest ever in the area. At the peak of the rainy season, the falls usually only see a drop of 2 metres.
US President Barack Obama has slammed claims he paid a ransom to Iran to secure the release of 4 American prisoners. Mr Obama says the $400 million cash paid in January was never a secret, and it was Iranian money the US government had frozen.
We do not pay ransom. We didn't here, and we won't in the future. Precisely because if we did, then we would start encouraging Americans to be targeted.
The White House says Iran was pushing to recover the money at an international tribunal.
It's over to sport now with Paddy Kilmurray.
And Paddy, the Panthers are desperately chasing a finals berth.
They are, but it's going to be tough to sneak in. Thanks, Paul. After slipping out of the top 8 last weekend, the Panthers admit it's do or die against the Roosters on Monday. They're ready to be a part of finals footy and say they've got the experience to get them there, despite having one of the youngest rosters in the NRL. Coming up, a Swans great calls time on his career. And up close and personal with the Dream Team. The Sharks are battling to hold on to top spot in the NRL. A loss to Canberra at Shark Park could see the boys from the Shire fall behind the Storm in the race for the minor premiership. Cronulla can't afford to slip up, and the coach has been forced to lay down the law to one of his erratic stars. In a moment, Australia's skittled by Sri Lanka's spinners. Australia has suffered another disastrous batting collapse in the second test. The Aussies were bowled out for 106, their lowest ever score against Sri Lanka. Chasing 281, spinner Rengana Herath ripped through the tourist middle order on day 2, taking a hat-trick. A short time ago, Sri Lanka were 5 for 106, holding a lead of 281 runs. The Titans have labelled talk their title contenders now. Jared Hayne is on board as bizarre and crazy. The club says they'll need to be smart with their star recruit, who'll have his final training run in the morning. Let's hope we see him more this summer.
Yeah. Thanks, Paddy.
Well, today's cool, wet weather in New South Wales was just what a group of charity motorcyclists was expecting for its annual Frozen Butt Ride. What began as a getaway among friends has become a bid to do good for others. 45 riders left Newcastle this morning bound for Hill End in the Central West. They're hoping to raise thousands of dollars for research into cystic fibrosis. While this group was staying on the tar, a separate group of trail bike riders is making its way via backtracks.
Gav has the weather for us next.
Tonight's weather report brought to you by Avita Gold Coast, sellers of the Avita Motorhomes and Caravan range, 90 Corton Drive, Burleigh Heads.
Well, a wet start to the day, but Gav, it turned out all right this afternoon.
Yes, everything breaking up, the cloud and the showers as the system moves further away, but we'll probably see a little more shower activity clip the southeast, I'd say, across the weekend. Trying to think of something to do? Well, go chasing waterfalls along the northern New South Wales ranges. They have been very impressive after the week's deluge. This is Apsley Falls. This is near Walker. They haven't looked like this for a very long time. Thanks to Jenny Hill for that photo, but it has been amazing along the Waterfall Way and Armidale, right up across those plateaus. They had some really big downpours, so it looks quite amazing as they are in full flight at the moment. Looking at the southwest, they are wet and they're going to get wetter. They've had a very consistent run of frontal activity moving through, producing showers. It's really the same for the east coast, which actually needed this winter drink. There was plenty that were really starved of moisture this winter, so this has been a pretty good system there, which has certainly changed the ball game. Particularly, as I said, up over the plateaus out towards Armidale, their dams, they're filling up from this system, and they haven't been full or had anything in them since 2012. You can see all of the cloud there just reaching the border, a lot of it buzzing past offshore. The onshore winds, though, are consistent along the entire Queensland coast, along with New South Wales. There's still a huge pressure gradient. It's a slow-moving low. It moved away from us really quickly, but it's stalled now, sitting over the North Island of New Zealand, and that's what's generating the swell. So still some pretty solid waves pushing through it, even though it eased off. And look at all this frontal activity in the west. They're just getting bombarded at the moment with one after the other, causing some lovely wintry conditions there in the Golden West, which isn't seeing much golden sunshine, but the southeast is underneath that ridge of high that is surging out and bulging over the red centre at the moment. All fine for Brisbane. Sydney's going to be pretty chilly if you're heading south this weekend, quite cool and a little bit showery. Talking of cool conditions, we only hit the teens mostly. The Gold Coast and further north along the highway up to Brisbane did manage a couple of 20s there, but we only scraped in over the mark thanks to that southerly drawing up some cooler air. The southerly continues tonight and the pressure is rebuilding. The humidity's around 60%. Taking a look at tomorrow's forecast rain. Big rain band offshore. Then the winds are going to want to bend around a little bit as we move through the day, and that's going to help clip the southeast, those exposed coastal areas with a little bit of shower activity. So out towards Coolangatta and the Tweed, you probably get a little bit wet, and maybe up around the border ranges as well. And there's a chance we'll have just a little surge there move in across the Gold Coast as well at times during tomorrow. But there's the morning southwesterly holding out, and there's that surge as it tries to bend around during the day that I'm talking about, which will help just draw in a little bit of shower activity at times. But overall, not huge amounts for us, and it should be 1 or 2 degrees warmer across the board. So we're looking at the low 20s and hardly anything moving inland. You can see there's only a very small chance of seeing some of that shower activity just pushing across the suburbs there from Burleigh around Miami up towards Surface, the Gold Coast and the Seaway, but across the suburbs of Narang up to Kilmurray and surrounds Robina, yeah, it's all going to be predominantly fine. There's the swell. There's plenty of it this weekend, up around 3 metres, and look at it holding as well. It's got a nice direction to it for us as well, which is wrapping around those big points, big enough to get in around Cape Byron as well, which will have some lovely protection from those winds that will want to come around to the southeast and try and get into those southern nooks and crannies. The high tide tomorrow morning is at 10:30 and the low at about 4:28. Sun rising 6:24 and down at 5:20 with that new moon on our hands. Protected water's best for boating, so you know, in around the Bay area or the inland canals there. Offshore, you're going to be a little bit exposed. It's a fairly solid chunky swell, and you've got some winds to deal with, so it's going to be choppy as well. So not fantastic, not overly inviting out there, especially with a couple of showers possibly running through. The shower activity, that band is going to be there again on Sunday, particularly offshore, before it warms up again next week. Some lovely warmth as we head back towards the mid-20s by next Wednesday, Thursday, right across the southeast and Brisbane itself, and then a little bit more cold air comes through. Taking a look at conditions, yeah, it was lovely stuff. We had some lovely sunny breaks at times, some early morning showers there moving through, but yeah, this afternoon was pretty golden, and there's the big swell that was wrapping around Snapper, wrapping around the rocks there, and D-Bar was big too. Lennox and, you know, all those southern point breaks further south will be offering some waves and protection, but you can see there's a lump and bump in it at the moment. It's very bumpy offshore, and that is affecting the wave quality a little bit, which should settle across the weekend, but we should see the swell overall hold because of that pressure gradient way offshore. But get out and enjoy. Water temp still around 20. nbnnews.com.au if you missed a local story.
Thanks, Gav. And that's the latest news.
To kick off your weekend of NRL action, watch the Eels take on Manly right after a current affair.
From all of us here, have a great weekend.
Good night.
Good night.